Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another round of Mind Your Puckin' Business with your host, Jeffrey Krentzman.
Thank you, Dougie Sticks. Good morning. Coming to you, as always, from the beautiful studios of Undefeated Media here in Bergen County, New Jersey. This is the Mind Your Puckin' Business podcast, brought to you, of course, by our good friends at the Bamboozle Project. We thank them, as always, for their sponsorship. You can check out their website coming across the screen right now. That is thebamboozleproject.com. While you're there, you can use your special promo code to save you 25% off, that being MYPB. So we thank the Bamboozle Project, as always, for their sponsorship of our show. You can send your questions at any time during the week, during the show, whatever you want to do, to our email address, mypbshow@gmail.com, or the more popular way nowadays for people to get in touch with us and interact with us is to DM us on our Instagram page, and that is at Mind Your Puckin' Business, which if you are following the video feed of today's show, you can see that spelling should you need to spell it. And you can listen to the show, as always, on a variety of different platforms. So whichever one you feel most comfortable with. That could be Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, whichever it is, wherever you want to find us. You've got plenty of options out there.
Yes.
And this is episode, I forgot to say, episode number 114. So if you are listening on the Spanish feature today, this is episode 114 on the Spanish dial today of MYPB. Now, we usually say when we're taping the show, so that if you go back and you listen to it later in the week, or whenever you go on your iTunes and your Spotify and listen to us, you kind of have an idea of when we're current as of. And we are current today as of May 2nd, so Tuesday, May 2nd, which I would think would give us significant things to talk about this morning, not really in a positive way. But so if you're thinking, well, when was May 2nd? Well, May 2nd is a Tuesday morning here in the month of May, and last night was Game 7 with the Rangers and Devils, which we're going to get into in a minute. But I want to say something. We had somebody, I did an Instagram Live with Ranger fans before the game last night. And someone had asked a question. I actually got to give him credit because I don't remember when I said this. This may have been 50 episodes back in the past, but I had said something like 50 episodes ago, one time just in passing to you on the air, where I said that when I was in high school, when the Rangers season ended, I wore black, which is true. I wore it for like a week, right?
Yeah.
This morning, while I was thinking when I was getting ready to come here, I said, you know what? I need to do. I didn't do it last year. Like I've kind of matured in that sense, but I decided to do it because someone brought it up on the Instagram Live that I hosted last night before Game 7.
We didn't script this.
Game 7.
I wore this for you too.
Now you were also there at Game 7.
It was crazy.
So before we get into it, yesterday about 6:00 at night, you call me. Now, normally, if I hear from you on a Monday night, it means something we're changing programming wise for the week. It's usually not good, right? Now, you had said...
I mean, I call you with good news most of the time.
Yeah, but if it's a Monday night...
I guess. Like, can we switch a time or something?
Yeah,
I get it. All right.
But the night before we're on, it usually has something to do with scheduling or something, right? And you said, no, guess what? Now, I had no clue what the answer was until you told me that you were going to Game 7 last night, which is cool for you because whether you're a Ranger or a Devil fan or even a fan of any team or in any sport, not even just the NHL, I think being at a Game 7 is quite an experience, and it's one that you never will forget. I mean, Ranger fans are trying to forget it this morning, but for you, cool for you to be there.
Absolutely, for a Game 7, but not only a Game 7, a Rangers Devils Game 7, where literally the arena is split and there's like fight in the stands. Like it was pandemonium. It was crazy. It was a great experience. I went in there wearing black because I knew one of my friends were gonna die that night.
I'm the lucky friends. All right, so let's get into it here. So this is such a playoff hockey is so strange. And we said last year in the Pittsburgh series that there's always also series within series, right? Like the series can take on a certain tone right out of the gate and then just completely change. And that's kind of what happened last year in the Pittsburgh series. But it was nothing like what happened in this series. The Rangers in game 1 and 2 in Newark won both games by a score of 5-1 and were the dominant team. I actually think that the best period of hockey I've seen the Rangers play the entire year was the second period of game 2. They couldn't do anything wrong, right?
Mhm.
The series shifts back to MSG. And last Saturday at about 12 o'clock, I'm about to go to my son's Little League game. And I get a bunch of texts that the Devils are changing goalies from Vitek Vanacek to Akira Schmidt. Okay. I mean, to me, I'm like, I don't really think it matters. Like, the Devils can't get anything going. The Rangers are blowing up their main guy. Let them bring the backup in. And really, it was a move that if you're Lindy Ruff and you're looking for a turning point in the series, that's it, is going to Akira Schmidt. Now, someone had said the other day on I believe it was on WFAN, and this was such an interesting, this is a severe statement. And so what I'm about to say is severe, and I don't want to sit here and say that it's me that came up with it, but I think it should be said that when you look at how the Rangers played in games 3 and 4 and 5, for that matter, compared to how they played in game 1 or 2, you would think this is the Black Sox scandal of 1919, which is when players are throwing games, because you're just like, you just play the polar opposite.
Yeah.
You could do no wrong. And then all of a sudden,
it was like 5-1 game.
Yeah, and the Rangers were dominant in those games. You were throwing pucks at the net. They couldn't get Chris Kreider out of the way in front of the net. They were doing everything right. And then they couldn't do a single thing right the rest of the way. So, for the Rangers, unfortunately, I was thinking driving into the studio this morning that this reminds me now of a very dark period of New York Ranger hockey, which was like the late 1990s, early 2000s, where the Rangers would have these rosters where they were a collection of stars, but they were not a team, right? And this is kind of what I think this group is going to be remembered as, and certainly wasn't the plan from Chris Drury, which is, look, you had Tarasenko, you had Kane, you had Panarin, you had Zibanejad, you had Kreider, you had Adam Fox, all these guys, but even Gerard Gallant, who we're going to get into in a minute, and that will not be pretty when I talk about that in a minute, but you had all these collection of stars, but they just didn't cohesively gel. Like, they just didn't look like a team, particularly game 3 on. Now, game 6 the other night, we'll talk about a positive. They played better at the Garden, but I was so pessimistic, and anyone who knows me and talked to me yesterday said, I haven't told you this, that I was pessimistic going into game 7, because even though they won on Saturday night, they weren't really the better team. The Devils were clearly the better team in the first period. The Rangers got better in the second, but they were not dominant. It wasn't like they figured out what had gone wrong in the 3 previous games. So I just was not confident at all last night. And I felt like it was going to be the same sort of thing that the Devils were going to do that would give the Rangers fits, which were 2 things. One, use their speed game to their advantage. The Devils are so damn fast. It is incredible.
Yeah.
When you think to yourself that you're watching an NHL hockey game, okay? Now you're watching a game, right? You know on TV that players are fast. It doesn't even, you're not sitting there even factoring it. But the Devils are so fast that it actually dawns on you in your mind, like, wow, this team is actually skating faster than what I normally see on TV. Like, you notice the difference. So that was one. And the other thing is the Rangers just couldn't get anything going. They went away from dumping the puck. This is not to get on Akira Schmidt, because Akira Schmidt can only stop what's thrown at him. So this is not I'm not trying to be a jerk here about Akira Schmidt, but again, last night, they're not testing this kid. They tested Vitek Vanacek in game 1 and 2. The quality of shots that Vanacek saw in games 1 and 2, Schmidt never really saw in 3, 4, 5, or 6. Maybe he saw it, or 7. Maybe he saw it for a little bit in game 6, and he didn't do well with it, actually, but he never saw it consistently. So why don't we pull up a comment? I see someone's writing in, and before we get to the next thing, and that is Michael. Yes, that's what I've been telling everyone, and got blank for it. I'm not going to use the word on there. Should have been a 6-1 Ranger game 6, and I'd say the Devils were still better. Yeah, he's right.
But, I mean, this seems like a common theme that the Ranger fans want more shots. Just shoot the puck.
But here's the problem. And yes, but it's a fair point to say, because if you are a Ranger fan and you're watching this, you saw this team in game 1 and 2 go into that arena and shoot at will, put Kreider in front of the net at will, be able to get the puck down low, even the kid line. Hito, Lafreniere, and Kako in game 1 and 2 cycling the puck. You saw all of this.
There was none of that.
There was nothing beyond that. So the series
no
turned.
Redirect pucks. There were
Nothing.
no settled shots. It was just like they would get maybe a shot off, and then they would press them and be gone.
And the other thing here as well is Akira Schmidt, in the shots he did see, seemed, I would think the scouting report, and I'm guessing on this, would be that he lets up a lot of rebounds. Rangers aren't crashing the net to get him anyway. What does it matter? Put someone in front of the net.
Yeah, and there was no one blocking his line of sight, so he was just like wide open, like glove save. Yeah, it was crazy.
And any NHL goalie, and that's a great point, Dougie Sticks. Any NHL level goalie, if you take an unobstructed, meaning an unscreened wrist shot from the point, it's going to get stopped 100% of the time in the NHL. It is. It's not going to go in. It goes in little kids hockey. It goes in and stuff like that, but it doesn't go in the NHL. So the series turns really on the combination of the goalie change as well as the kind of neutral zone adjustments where the Devils just did not let the Rangers go through the neutral zone to get set up like they did in games 1 and 2. So you have to give Lindy Ruff credit. Lindy Ruff, we talked about this earlier in the year. We had a Devil guest on where the Devils fans at the Rock are chanting fire Lindy Ruff, into game 2, I think it was. And now he's led them to the Eastern Conference semifinals where they probably are going to beat Carolina. We'll get into second round predictions in a little bit. But it was really his coaching adjustments here that really made the series turn around. The decision to change the goalie as well as his playing style. So give him credit on that. Now with the Rangers, look, you didn't. So I walked in the studio before, and B-Rock, the undefeated media resident Devil fan, said to me, "Well, you don't seem that upset." And I wasn't. The Rangers didn't deserve to win the series, right? I mean, let's be real. If the Rangers last night, let's say that game stays 0-0 because Igor stays on his head, it goes into overtime and the Rangers score a goal, right? And they win the series. I'm not sure I would have come in here today and told you the Rangers deserved to win the series because they didn't. They were not the better team. This is the second year in a row that they had a 2-0 lead in the series and lost the series. I mean, think about that. You had a 2-0 lead in the best of 7, 2 straight years, and lost and got eliminated. And if you go to our Instagram page, there is a clip from 2 weeks ago where I said, and I only used game 1. I should have used game 2 as well, where I said, look, don't go into game 1 and think that who's ever going to win game 1 is going to win this series, because it doesn't work like that. And with the Rangers now next year, provided they get back there, we're going to have a clip where it goes, doesn't matter if you win game 1 or 2, until you win your 4th game, it doesn't really matter. So the other thing that is just amazing to me was a stat I read this morning that in the 4 losses for the Rangers, games 3, 4, 5, and 7, the Rangers scored a total of 2 goals. They did not score a goal at the Rock, single goal, in games 5 or 7. With a team with the offensive firepower that the Rangers had in trades and Tarasenko and Kane, again, which we're going to get into in a minute, that to me, I can't even think of what the odds of that would have been. If you told me that the Rangers in the 4 games, I wouldn't have been surprised if they lost to the Devils in the series, because I told you I thought the series was a pick 'em. That's what Vegas thought too. Yeah. But if I told you that in the 4 losses that the Rangers had, they would have been shut out in 2 of them and scored 1 goal in the other 2, and the Devils starting goalie wouldn't even be the one playing in Vitek Vanacek, I would have told you you're nuts. Yeah. But that's what happens.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Just I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. I mean, we're going to try and kind of do some analysis on it right now, and we're also going to look at some offseason stuff, which is totally knee-jerk reactions. Like, I could sit here and tell you, well, this is not going to be knee-jerk reactions, but Game 7 ended 11 hours ago. So if you think I sat here for 11 hours, didn't sleep, and simply went through carefully analyzing this, but thankfully on the Mind Your Puck and Business program, we're going to have 4 months to do that and go through that. So about 2.5 years ago, when we started the show, the term that I like to use was window of opportunity. Quote, window of opportunity. Yeah. The Rangers are in a window of opportunity, right? Yep. The window's open. You got to try and go through the window and get to the cup when you're there. This is now year 3 that ends of the window of opportunity without a cup. Yeah.
This is the year that we shut the window.
No. I'm not saying that. I'm saying this is the 3rd year that the window has been open, and you have not taken the opportunity to go through the window. You haven't gotten through the window and capitalized on the window of opportunity. So, I don't know. You were there last night. Anything you saw differently?
So, no offense to the Rangers, but they, Jack Hughes and his young crew look like Peter Pan and the Lost Boys, and the Rangers look like a bunch of Captain Hooks, just like old rusty men. Like, they just looked like young guns speeding around versus guys who were like, rusty, if you will. Rusty, is rusty an appropriate word?
Rusty's an appropriate word. And speaking of appropriate words, because in our pre-show meetings today, yes. I know you were waiting to use that Peter Pan analogy.
Oh yeah, I was holding that in my back pocket. Yes, Jack Hughes looked like Peter Pan, dancing around at the disco.
Jack Hughes has never been more complimented than that. All right. So let's go here. And I'm gonna say something, and I may regret this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. 2.5 years ago, David Quinn was the coach of the New York Rangers. And while he was the coach of the New York Rangers in what was that Corona weird season where they played only your conference and they didn't travel and all that stuff, it was clear as day that David Quinn was not the right coach for this team.
Mm-hmm.
At that point in time, okay, at that point, Gerard Gallant was still out there on the coaching market. I said when David Quinn was employed by the team, at some point you need to get rid of David Quinn. He's not the right guy for this team, and you got to go out and get Gerard Gallant. And they did. And Gerard Gallant was the right coach for this team, but he's not the right coach anymore because one of two things happened in this series with Gerard Gallant. Okay. And I don't know the answer, but whatever the answer is not acceptable. One of these two things happened. Either you were not able to adjust to the changes that Lindy Ruff made, right? Which, as we just talked about. So that's one, which would not be okay. Or two, you lost your team. Your team has tuned you out. You've lost the locker room. One of those two things to me has happened. I don't care if it's one of them. I don't care if it's both of them. If it's one of them, you're out. You're done.
Okay. Yeah.
You're done.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to come back to that. And people that watch this show know that I am a season ticket holder, right? So I am the idiot that gets these emails from the Garden every summer and all that stuff that's promoting the team. We're selling you on our product, right? It's a business after all. People forget this. This is a business, right? How do you sell to your fan base right now that Gerard Gallant is the right guy for this team? We're in this window of opportunity because of youth, right? We're all young. Let me explain to you some stats here in the first round series. Alexis Lafreniere, the generational talent, the generational guy that the lotto ball came out on a Monday afternoon in August that we got the first pick to get Alexis Lafreniere. How many points did Alexis Lafreniere have in this series?
Well, that's what our Michael has said. How do we feel about Laf having
Perfect
no
timing.
points?
0 points. The generational talent in a 7-game playoff series has 0 points. Let that sink in for a minute. Let's go on a little bit further. Capo Caco the year before, the second pick behind Jack Hughes. And if there's any freaking moron in this world that is still comparing Jack Hughes to Capo Caco, I have a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn. I really do. Or come talk to me about my other business and I'll sell you whatever you want. You'll be an easy client for me. Capo Caco finishes with 1 goal, which for whatever, he scored in meaningless time really in game 2. Philip Hedl, who some people think, myself included, improved vastly this year, and he did. How did he do this postseason, Dougie, in the 7 games? He had 1 goal. But you know what? When he scored that 1 goal, there wasn't a goalie in the goddamn net. It was an empty netter. The kids are not developing under this coach. If you look at Gerard Gallant's style, and every coach is entitled to have their own style or system that they play, he's always been a coach around the league where he relies on his veterans and doesn't like his youth. The youth are not developing here. They're not. It's clear as day.
Could there be a third option that he's too stubborn? It seems like he doesn't change things. That he seems like he's stubborn.
Well, he does.
Like, I don't want to play the kid line. I'm going to play my lines.
He does make changes in the sense that he likes to juggle the lines, but he likes to juggle the lines more than someone should, because what is ending up happening is there's no chemistry if you're constantly changing the freaking lines. Gerard Gallant is not the right coach right now for this team. And I'm sorry. And I like Gerard Gallant. Last year, when we went into the season in his first year, and any Ranger fan will tell you that the goal of last year, if you remember, let's go back a year and a half ago, Dan Rosen is with us. Before the season even starts, before Gerard Gallant has coached a single game, and we both said that the goal for that team that year with the young players developing is get to the playoffs, make the playoffs. They went through that regular season, finished with the 2nd seed, and went to the Eastern Conference Finals, and even once again, won game 1 and 2 and found a way to lose. That was an incredible season by Gerard Gallant. This season has not been an incredible season by Gerard Gallant. They've been incredibly inconsistent. Like, ridiculously inconsistent to the point in December that it was so bad that Jacob Trouba had to throw his helmet in the wall while he's getting ejected from his game to wake his team up. Okay. He's either lost the team or he can't adjust, and the youth are not developing. So how do you sell me as a season ticket holder? But again, I already paid my invoice. I'm that moron that's already done that. But how do you sell me as a season ticket holder that we're doing everything we can to put the best product to get you the best result, to tell me that Gerard Gallant is the right coach for this team? Because he's not.
So we made the joke when we first got Gerard Gallant, the Gallard bump, right?
Yeah,
And
thank you.
And not to have be in this world of we make the joke of Gallard bump, but just like any kind of spike, there comes a crash.
And Gerard Gallant's, and that's an
After the
excellent
bump,
point. Because thank you. That's a great point, because when Gallant was hired here, I had said if you look wherever he goes the first season, there's a big bump, right? There's a big, but his track record also coming back is that it's not. Can you put and I see
Which
you guys
one?
are
flood in the comments.
You guys
right
are
now.
crushing the comments. I'll get to them all. The first one from Chris at 10:02. And that is my point, which is that the Rangers played the game like we've been here before, so we're going to win without effort. That's on the coach, right?
Yeah.
That's on the coach. Now, to an extent, players, you're a professional hockey player, you should know you shouldn't be coasting through a game 7. I get that. But it's on the coach. Someone's got to be responsible for it.
Yeah.
And the responsibility for that is Gerard Gallant.
And it seems like his way of handling is like talking smack to the press. Like, the guys are playing like shit.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, during the intermission of, like, what was it, game 6 or something? He was like, in the intermission, he was like, the guys are playing terrible. These guys are terrible.
Yep. He's just not the right coach for the team. Now, I'm not going to sit here, and what I try and do, and I'm not going to do it now, so I'm going to get on myself, is that whenever you identify a problem, which in this case is Gerard Gallant, you also have to sit there and say, what's the solution, right?
Okay.
Because if the problem is that, if the problem is this, what's the solution? I don't know what the answer is. I've read this morning, Joel Quenneville is out there. Joel Quenneville has won a bunch of Stanley Cups in Chicago. He's an all-time, I don't want to say he's an all-time great coach, but he's an elite coach in this league. He got removed from coaching a year and a half ago because of a scandal that happened with the Chicago Blackhawks when he was in charge with a rape issue that was covered up. I don't want to get into that. So right now, to me, until he's reinstated by the league, if the league feels that he should be or not, that is not my decision to make. He's not an option because he's not allowed to be in the league. So you can talk about Joel Quenneville would be a good fit, and he probably would with his coaching style because he's won with veterans and a mix of, stuff. But right now, he's not really an option. Is Andrew Brunette an option on the Devils? No, because they signed him to a 3-year deal. And if the Devils are going to sit here and let Andrew Brunette leave, because Lindsey Ruff's not going to be there forever, they're not going to sit there and grant permission to their rival, the Rangers, to talk to him. So Andrew Brunette is not an option. There's a comment, we'll pull the last one up, is that Peter Lavalette is out there coaching-wise, and I know he is. Peter Lavalette, to me, is a complete definition of a retread, right? Just a guy that cycles through. He'll have a good first year, and we'll be right back here 2 years from now. So I don't know. I want to be completely transparent. I'm not up to date on what the current free agent market of coaches are right now. We could take a look at that at some point, but Bruce Boudreau does not strike me as exciting either. Some of these retread guys. Someone wrote to me last night after the game, even though I was far asleep because I didn't want to even deal with the world at that moment, was that Barry Trotz is out there. Barry Trotz is not out there. He just signed a deal to become the general manager in Nashville, so he's got a great gig out there. I don't really know that he would be the answer for this team anyway with the system with the vets. If you look at Trotz, he kind of had a little bit of a falling out with Barzell when he was with the Islanders. I'm not sure he would be the right fit, so I don't know. But I will say this, Chris Drury, and he's a quiet man, but if you look at a lot of the stuff that's been written about the way he goes about his business, he crosses all of his T's, he dots all of his I's. He's very methodical in his research. So if there is a chance that Gerard Gallant is going to get evaluated and not be here next year, Chris Drury is the one that will certainly do that. And I don't think he would be afraid to do it. I think what you're going to see is what happens is when the season ends, now you're going to get breakup days where we'll call kind of exit interviews where team management, in particular Chris Drury and the general managing staff over there at the Garden, are going to sit down with some of these players and interview them and say, look, what did you think happened? And this is what got John Tortorella fired with the Rangers in 2013 is when these exit interviews came, Glenn Sather was kind of blown away at how much John Tortorella had lost the team. And so there is certainly a chance here that you're going to hear that.
So we're hitting the panic button. We're new coach now.
I'm going to say this. If Gerard Gallant is back next year,
yes,
this is the worst case scenario to me.
Yes.
If you want to tell me Gerard Gallant is back next year, I will be okay. I don't think he should be. I will be okay with it. But I will tell you that this guy has to be on the shortest leash possible next season. I mean, he has to be. You cannot let it unravel like you did this year in the beginning of the year. Because if there are signs of that in October or November, you can't wait to pull the plug. Because Gerard Gallant, again, historically, when he goes to places, we joke about the Gerard bump where it was bumped up in the beginning. It then becomes a progression of slowly going backwards each year. And when you see that, you need to be proactive in stopping that instead of being reactive. Now, Chris Drury is the sort of guy that wouldn't surprise me. And again, I don't know who this name is, so I'm not saying like I know something here, that he may know of an assistant somewhere in the league that he really thinks is really ready to make the jump and be an NHL level head coach. Kind of like Andrew Brunette was in Florida. Andrew Brunette is ironically the guy that took over for Joe Quenneville when Joe Quenneville got suspended by the league. But maybe he knows something out there and can find that guy. But I just, yeah. And let's also talk about this. And again, I'm going to just let it all. I'm going to like literally let it all out.
My favorite type of Jeff.
This is, you like this. Well, if you like this side of me, you're going to like today. The Vladimir Tarasenko trade and the Patrick Kane trade was a waste of time. Complete waste of time. Patrick Kane is a shell of himself. How many times did I see this guy dance with the puck and either refuse to shoot or wait till a defender last night in second period came on him, he didn't even get a shot off, or throws the puck at a pass that isn't even accurate. I can't believe from watching Patrick Kane that this is what 2 months ago we were all so excited that we got, that these idiots on Twitter at Ranger games are wearing Patrick Kane jerseys before he's even signed by the Rangers, and how excited they were. Right? It's amazing to me. Patrick Kane trade was awful. The Tarasenko trade was not as bad, but it didn't work either. Remember something. Go back 3 months ago, right? When you hear like, the Rangers maybe are going to get Kane or looking at Tarasenko and all that stuff, right? It's exciting. Why did they come here? They came here because they had playoff experience and they were supposed to be the pieces of the puzzle to get you over the hump and get you to the Stanley Cup. We are out in the first round. We lost 4 of the last 5 games. We scored 2 goals in the game. In 2 of the games we lost, we scored two goals in the 4 games we lost. And you're going to tell me that Tarasenko and Kane were worth it? For what? They were better without him. Kane is a shell of himself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, another thing that these people are going to have to decide on at the Garden is what do you do next year with them? I can take, and I was telling B-Rock when he was in here before, if Patrick Kane is back here, there's only one condition Patrick Kane is back here. Only one, and that's if he takes the veteran minimum, right? If I have to sign a guy and sign a roster player, if it's Patrick Kane, let it be for the veteran minimum. He's not going to do it. I don't think he's coming back here. But you can't sit here and devote part of your salary cap when you're going to have all this contract issue to a guy who looks like a shell of himself. Now, it would also be typical Rangers, right? Typical that this week they're going to sit here and say to you, you know what? Patrick Kane was playing with a bruised hip, or Temi Panarin was playing with a partially torn meniscus, or some bullshit. But it didn't work. These trades didn't work. So if you're one of these people that went out and bought these jerseys, I'm sorry. I hope you have a 90-day window to return it because you're still within that 90-day window. So I'm going to get to some of these comments because you guys are flying them in.
Well, that's what we have up here. Because you just mentioned Panarin. Panarin hasn't got any flack yet. How do we feel about his performance?
So Artemi Panarin, perfect. Another thing. So Artemi Panarin was signed here. I'm going to tell you a true story. On July 1st, 2019, Artemi Panarin was signed to come to the Rangers. And the free agent market opened at like 12 o'clock p.m. That's when teams could start signing players. I was standing at a gate at Newark Airport about to board a plane for a work trip at like 11:52. And my phone went off by one of the guys who's commenting right now on the Chris, and it was the Rangers are about to sign Panarin. It came out of nowhere. Artemi Panarin, to me, and I'm going to be careful how I say this, was one of the best regular season signings this team has ever had. And if it wasn't for the playoffs, I'd even say the best, because he's had incredible regular seasons. Like everything you could have asked for in his contract of what he's getting paid, he's earned it in the regular season. The playoffs, completely opposite. I mean, I don't understand. And Mike, you can put up the last comment by Michael, and he's right, is that Panarin was even worse this year than he was last year. Last year, Panarin got a pass, and he didn't deserve it, and I was one of these idiots that gave it to him because we sat here and said, you know what? We're not going to get on Artemi Panarin because Artemi Panarin scored the game-winning goal in Game 7 versus Pittsburgh. It was a huge goal, yada, yada, yada. He'll get a pass. It kind of flew under the radar, and the team was doing good. I don't understand where the hell he's been the last 2 weeks. I have no idea. You tell me where Artemi Panarin's been. I mean, the dude's been missing.
Has he a goal or assist in the whole series?
No, he has not had a point. Artemi Panarin, let me explain. Okay.
Artemi Panarin second pass assist too, right?
No, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to give you your answer. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Before I give you the answer, remember, he's getting paid $11.5 million. You think Undefeated Media and the parent company here pays you a lot? Artemi Panarin gets paid $11.5 million. Since 9 minutes into the first period of game 1, when he had an assist, he hasn't had a single point in all series.
Wow.
So people are sitting there saying, well, what do you want to do with Artemi Panarin? Do you want to trade him? Here's the problem with trading Artemi Panarin, okay? And people need to realize this. I understand what he did in the playoffs, or didn't do, rather, is incredibly frustrating. But you need his 90-plus points in the regular season to help get you to the playoffs. If Chris Drury makes Artemi Panarin available, if he decides, you know what, Artemi Panarin is available to the other 31 general managers in the National Hockey League, he'll get phone calls all day about him. Other teams would love Panarin. Why wouldn't they? But I don't know where this man went. No, at all. And he was so, at times, even yesterday in the power play in the first period, so hesitant to even shoot. And you know what? Michael's correcting me on something, and he's right about that, is he has a full no movement clause. We can't train him. So there's your answer. I can't trade him anyway, unless, of course, he okayed it. Now, he may turn around and say, you know what? Get me out of this mess, because this team can't score. I'm getting killed in the New York spotlight. Let me go play on a team. I don't want to say he wants to go back to Columbus, but a team in a smaller market and play there, maybe. But he would have to approve it because it has a full no movement clause. So, I mean, it's just it's awful. Why don't we take the 1014 comment from Mike? Can we touch on ticket prices? Right there. Can we touch on ticket prices? Imagine if we went to the Cup, what prices would be. So, full disclosure, Michael, I've said this before. I'm a season ticket holder, so I'm well aware of what the tickets cost. The Rangers themselves do not charge season ticket holders what they charge the average person. So the ticket price, what they're charging season ticket holders, are actually fair, if I'm being honest. It's when it gets marked up on the secondary market. But yes, if they had made the Cup and had a Cup run, ticket prices would be through the roof. You would be selling your kidney to get into Madison Square Garden to see something like that. We'll take Chris's comment from 1014, which is the Tarasenko scored his first goal in 2 games and the huge goal in game 6. He scored, they won. Yeah, he did. But at the same time, Chris, where was he in the games that they lost, right? He did score in the 3 winning games, but he also did nothing really in the rest of the series. Adam Fox had an abysmal series. That goal last night, the first goal on the shorthanded goal, which was the epitome of what the Devils do right? Which is just attack you with speed. The fact in in our own defensive end while we're on a power play, just constantly getting pressured there. Adam Fox had a terrible series. Just a terror. I mean, again, this is where now the Rangers will cover it up this week and sit here and tell you that, Adam Fox was hurt. He hurt his knee. Took a puck off the knee in practice 4 weeks ago, mysteriously. But yeah, I don't know.
So how do you keep these guys on the ice then? It's game 7.
Because you're not going to put on Jimmy Vesey in the clutch moment where you need a goal.
Yeah, but you're getting danced around by Peter Pan. It's time to you got to put guys who can keep up the speed and who can skate. This guy's got, I got a torn meniscus. Well, you get him off the ice, he can't skate.
They don't have anyone else to do. Now, being really looking ahead here, right? Let's look at the free agency list with the Rangers. And again, we will have plenty of time in the next couple weeks to cover this. But before I do that, the generational talent, someone just sent me this.
Yes.
Alexis Lafreniere in the 7-game series versus the Devils, right? The generational talent.
Yes.
0 goals, 0 assists, 0 points, 0 penalty minutes, 0 plus minus, 0 net takeaways.
Yeah, I don't even remember seeing him on the ice.
Well, I said that to my son last night. I said, is Alexis Lafreniere even playing? I mean, I don't even know if he's even out there.
Was he even out there?
And he had a chance. I'll tell you this. He had a chance last night. He had a 2-on-1 when the game was 0-0. Yeah. And he made the right play because you shoot that puck there because you'll get the shot on net. If you pass it and the way things have been going, it'll end up in the corner. He shot it. But, generational talents are going to score in those situations. I'm just going to sit there and say it. So I'm really quickly falling off the Alexis Lafreniere train. All right. Unrestricted free agents in the offseason. Patrick Kane, Vladimir Tarasenko, Nico Mikola, Tyler Mott, and Yaroslav Halak. Well, we've already touched on Kane and Tarasenko. Kane can only come back here in my eyes if he were to take the veteran minimum, which he's not going to do because someone's going to pay him, and so he can go elsewhere. And I mean, good riddance, dude. I cannot believe and Showtime is his name. Wait till you see Showtime in the playoffs, what he will do for you. He elevates his game and all this stuff. This guy did nothing. I mean, literally nothing. So that's him. Tarasenko, I wouldn't be opposed to Tarasenko coming back here if Tarasenko would come back here at not a lot of money. I really wouldn't. I didn't love Tarasenko. I didn't hate him either. McCullough, who took a ton of flack for Rangers in the first month this year, I thought played well. And even last night on the broadcast, they were saying McCullough is really the only one that's getting shots to the net. If you get rid of McCullough on like a lower end defenseman, you got to replace him with a lower end defenseman. What lower end defenseman is better than him, right? I mean, I'm fine with signing him. Tyler Mott, again, I think, and Tyler Mott drew 2 of the penalties in the first period last night. Tyler Mott's got to come back here. Hopefully, Chris Drury learned from his mistake last year. They let him go, that he had to trade him at the deadline to get him back. I would resign Tyler Mott. Yaroslav Halak is an interesting situation, right? It's a backup goalie. If you wanted to come back here on another 1-year deal, I thought he did fine, actually. But you want to tell me that there's another goalie out there a little bit younger that you think you can get at the same price point? I'm fine with that. And it should be mentioned because it's a shame if it wasn't. And a lot of people that posted this, and I do agree with this, and I feel bad for him, is Igor Shesterkin, how good he was in this series, right? If Igor Shesterkin wasn't Igor Shesterkin, this series isn't even going 7 games. You would not have been there last night. You feel bad for Igor because he just got no support. And there was even the part of game 5 in the third period where he's skating past the bench, encouraging his team to wake up and start playing. I mean, I don't understand at all, how the team just doesn't show up. How do you not show up for a game 7? As Lindy Ruff said after game 6, and he's right, and he's saying it to motivate his team. He's like, I know my guys will be ready Monday night. It's game 7. As a kid, it's the sort of game you want to play in. We have a team of all these vets that have played in games like this, and no one showed up. And another guy, by the way, that I could also leave, although he's not a free agent, but they could trade him, and they probably will, and they should, is Barclay Goodrow. Another guy brought in from Tampa, Stanley Cup pedigree, you're going to love him. No, he's gone. He's gone. And Michael's point is absolutely right. The one he just said is that Igor feels like it's Hank 2.0 and sad to see. And what he's really getting at is here's a great guy who has a potential to run his entire career on Broadway and not see a cup. Now, the one thing I will say about that is Igor Shesterkin is in his 4th year. So Hank was here for about 14. So there is more time for Igor to get it. It's hard to say that he's definitively going to be Hank again, and you don't want that to be true. But certainly at the start of his career, yes, 100% is a fair point. So what do we do now? So it was obvious to see the speed and the agility of the Devils. Do you now, clean house of old veterans? You're not going to do that, but what you're going to do, I think, is you're going to. Chris Drury this is a very critical offseason for this franchise on a lot of levels, right? What are you doing with the kids? Kakko and Lafreniere. Are you of the mindset that after Kakko's 4th year and Lafreniere's 3rd year, you've seen enough to think that there's talent here, that they can be long-term stars on this team, which is what they were supposed to be when they came here? To me, I'm not buying it at all.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. They didn't really get the opportunity to even be those stars. They didn't get the playing time to.
That's part of it for sure, right? And that's the coach. So here's a coach again whose system and philosophy, and every coach is entitled to their own system and philosophies. I'm going to rely on the vets and not let a lot of my youth. Well, that's showing because here the youth are, and they haven't been developed at all, right? So I that's one thing to decide on. You obviously got to decide on Kane and Tarasenko. I can't see a situation where they're re-signing Patrick Kane. I really can't. I mean, again, the only exception I would say is if it's at the league minimum, but someone's going to pay Patrick Kane a lot more than that. So I don't see Patrick Kane back here, which will end what was a 2-month really terrible run on Broadway for him. I mean, really terrible. When he made his debut game, ironically, 2 months ago today, on March 2nd versus Ottawa, it was a Thursday night, ticket prices were through the roof to see Showtime's debut on Broadway. Showtime sucks. I mean, I'm sorry. Either that or he's hurt. Why don't we pull up that comment, because I'll let someone else answer the question other than me, the one at the bottom, and I don't see what it says. I would say, no doubt, Clearhouse, veteran-wise. Here's a good point. How do we feel about McCullough? If we sign him, he would make max 2.3. Does he fit? Where would he want to go? I would sign McCullough because I don't think there's going to be another, a lower-level defenseman that's not playing your top pair that's better at the price point than you can get McCullough for. I didn't have a problem with him. I know some Ranger fans were all over him. Like, they wanted to make him, what's his name? Nemeth. Like, he was the next Patrick Nemeth when he came here, but he wasn't. He was fine. He was fine. He was solid. And at least he did try to create offense, which for some of these guys, another guy that had a terrible series was Keandre Miller. I mean, just like if you're Chris Drury today going into work at 2 Penn Plaza, the offices are right outside like the entryway to Madison Square Garden.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you're annoyed, but you've got to be overwhelmed thinking to yourself exactly what it is, these decisions that you have to make and how many of them that there are. There's so many decisions that they need to make.
Yeah.
Here. It really is. I mean, it's all something no one is talking about. Why don't we put this one up and then I'll take the last comment. Something no one is talking about. I think trading Gauthier was an awful move. He actually had great attributes for a current generational talent. Don't have he drives to the net. Yeah, I mean, you know what, Michael? It's a fair point. So they traded Gauthier to get Tyler Mott back. He does drive to the net. He's that sort of player. If you wanted to tell me right now, is Alexis Lafreniere a much better player than Gauthier? I'm not really sure I could say that. Now, here's the counter argument. If you want to pull up Chris's point, which was that Gauthier is a AAA player. But you know what? Whichever side of the argument there, Chris or Mike, you want to side with, and with either of them, at the same time, neither of them are producing. Gauthier didn't really produce a ton here, and Lafreniere didn't produce a ton here. So, I don't know. So it'll be very interesting to see what Chris Drury does. If you're thinking that Gerard Gallant is going to lose his job, it's not going to happen today. They're going to go through this process that they do of exit interviews. And really, there is not right now, as I said, a coach out there that's like a red hot coach that you got to make a move quick to get before someone else hires him. I mean, Joel Quenneville's not even hasn't even been reinstated by the league, as far as everyone knows. So it's not like they're going to sit here. Is Daryl Sutter, who got fired yesterday in Calgary, a fit? Nope, probably not. Nope, probably not the fit either. So yeah, it's just a frustrating way for it to end. You know, you want your team, you invest all this time and energy in a team, and as you do that, you want them to show up and play with passion and all that stuff, and for them to not even do anything. So it's awful. All right, real quickly here, we'll go around the league for some second round predictions because I know you guys wanted me to do that.
This is a crazy year. Stanley Cup. The Stanley Cup champions are out.
Yeah,
you're the best season ever is out.
Let's talk about that. So Chris, who's writing in the comments, sends me a text on Sunday night. The Bruins get eliminated by the Panthers, which, by the way, is absolutely incredible to me because Boston was up 3-1 in that series. And it's not like a 3-1 series means you're going to win the series. Because remember, the Rangers were down 3-1 to Pittsburgh last year and came back. They were down 3-1 at Washington a couple years ago and came back. You can come back from a 3-1 series. But you're home in game 7 and you have a 3-2 lead with 1 minute and 10 seconds.
Left.
That's all you got to do.
With an empty net.
And you're not only are you the President's winning team, okay?
Yeah.
You are literally the best. You had the best regular season in the history of the NHL. So I'm even going to amplify it, right? You had and you lose that. And it just shows you. And I want to give you a comparison. We talk about how the March Madness, for example, is the time of year where there's upsets, right? Fairleigh Dickinson goes out and beats Purdue, 16 beats the one in your hometown of Hackensack, right? All of that stuff, or Teaneck, whatever it may be. And now, like you look at
one game. Right?
Yeah,
you had 7 games.
You had 7 games. It just shows you that like upsets, it can happen. I mean, March Madness is March Madness, but at the same time, like the NHL playoffs, there's upsets galore.
Yeah.
How does Florida, who gets in on like the third to last day of the season, has I don't want to say they had a terrible regular season, but they had a very underachieving.
Was it the best?
It's all about getting hot at the right time. So let's start with a topic we're familiar with here in the Eastern Conference. The Devils in Carolina. Man, I am shocked this morning that the Devils were minus 130 in the series line to win the series. If you're betting, I will not bet on. I don't usually bet on hockey, and I certainly don't ever bet on the Rangers or the Devils because of my either allegiance or hatred. But if you were betting on if you want to make money here, the Devils at minus 130 are a great buy. First off, Carolina's goalie is not Igor Shesterkin. Right? It's just not. Frederick Anderson or whoever they're going to is not. So you're going to be playing an easier goalie. They've got Svechnikov out with a torn ACL. I'm going with the Devils here in 5 or 6. I would, matter of fact, to me, this is I think the best matchup for any team in the second round is the Devils, right? I think the Devils come out of the second round and beat Carolina. The other Eastern Conference is Florida and Toronto. So here's what's interesting about that. Toronto needed to get out of the first round, right?
Mhm.
So as someone said, there was a reporter in Toronto the other day that said this, and it was a good point. It's like, look, they had all this pressure to get out of the first round. Now that they're out of the first round, is it kind of like they've exhausted themselves and they're kind of content where they need to be?
Mhm.
And Florida is playing with all this momentum. I like Toronto in the series, but I think anybody that thinks that they like Toronto and it'll be a cakewalk, remember, Florida just beat Boston, and they beat Boston 3 in a row.
And everyone
to
was
win the
scared.
series.
All these episodes we were having the
Yep.
show the last like 4 weeks. Everyone's Boston.
Yep. So
Sorry, Boston.
I am going Toronto there actually in 7. I think that's a long series. So I'm going to go the Devils. I'm going to actually say the Devils in 6, that they'll clinch it at home because they don't have home ice in that series.
Mhm.
I'm going to say the Devils in 6, Toronto in 7. Out west, one series is far more appealing than the other, and that is the Edmonton at Vegas series.
Mhm.
I've said I even picked Edmonton to win the Stanley Cup in my picks. So
Mhm.
obviously I'm picking Edmonton to come out of that series. I like Edmonton in 6. The Kings gave them a run
Mhm.
and they gave them a fight. And I think sometimes when you can get out of a first round and you've been tested, that can work to your advantage.
Mhm.
I like Edmonton in 6 there to clinch at home in game 6. The other series, Seattle at Dallas, Dave Haxtell did not do a good job in his first NHL job coaching in Philly. And when Seattle hired him to coach their expansion, people were like, what? But they got something right, because now in his second year, he's now eliminated the Colorado Avalanche in 7 games, the defending champion.
Mhm.
I like Dallas in the series. I think Dallas is a little bit better than people give them credit for, and Peter DeBoer is a good coach.
Mhm.
I like Dallas here. I'm going to actually say 7. So I'm going to go, my predictions for the second round are the Devils in 6, Edmonton in 6, Toronto in 7, and Dallas in 7. Now, if you're any of these 8 teams, right? I'm going to use the Devils as an example because we live here.
Mhm.
You now, not only are you coming out of the first round as winner, but you look ahead, and you never want to look like beyond the first round. Obviously, you don't ever want to do, or your next round, right? Because you look ahead, you're going to get in trouble. But you look ahead, you see Boston's been eliminated. You see Tampa's been eliminated. You've seen Colorado's been eliminated. The cup is up for grabs right now.
Yeah.
I mean, any of these teams can win the cup.
That's why, I mean, sorry, I'm not trying to rub it in, but that's why, like, the person who comes out of this, Devil Rangers, especially now with like the top 3 of the 4 teams, you'd say Edmonton's the 4th, right? Edmonton's still in it. Boston, what's we call it? Go ahead.
Colorado,
and Tampa.
Yeah. And out of the 8 teams remaining, the team out of the 8 that was the last team to win the Stanley Cup, you'd have to go all the way back to 2006 with Carolina. I mean, that's how long it's been since any of these teams won the cup. Now, for me, because this was another thing that someone asked, well, who am I rooting for? I would actually like to see, now that the Rangers are eliminated, I would like to see the Stanley Cup go back to Canada for the first time since 1993. I think it would be cool. And I think it would be really neat if Toronto, I'm going to cheer for Toronto or Edmonton, one of those 2 teams.
Okay.
What?
Nothing. It's like Rangers are another country.
No.
It's Rangers are another country. Well, look. We live in New Jersey. You're not gonna
B-Rock over there in the comments thinks the Kraken are coming out of the West.
Okay.
Which at this point wouldn't surprise anyone, right?
Okay.
They just beat the defenders.
That's the West, and New Jersey's in the East.
So you're thinking I'm going to root for the Devils?
I'm just saying.
There's no chance.
You don't want to. You want to lose to the champion?
No chance. Look, man. I'm a civil dude. I don't talk smack. I'm fine with it. But if you think I'm sitting there and I'm supporting them, no. So we'll pull up the last comment from Matt. That's a Devils fan. A Toronto Edmonton finals would be electric. Yeah. Now Matt's going to root for the Devils because he's a Devil fan. But yes, Toronto Edmonton finals would be great. And I think actually, if you're a Devil fan, I was saying this morning to someone. Who is your biggest threat of the remaining other 7 teams in it? It's probably Edmonton. Edmonton is, I think, the best team because the Devils, where they play a speed game, remember the type of game that Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and Zach Hyman and all those guys up there play. It's a speed game. I mean, Edmonton is a matchup problem for anyone, but that's the sort of team that could actually possibly match the Devils' best advantage, and that being speed.
So, like, if they match up, are we looking at 5-4 games?
You'd be looking at
6-5 games.
Well, here would be my worry, and I'm getting way ahead of this right now. If you were the Devils and you were playing and you were playing Edmonton, I don't know that you want Akira Schmidt in net versus Connor McDavid. This is Connor McDavid is not the disappearing act of Artemi Panarin, because Connor McDavid actually shows up in the playoffs. So we'll take that last comment. I agree. Canada deserves to at least make it to the finals. It's been a while. Yeah. I mean, it would be good for the sport. Look, we all have our allegiance of teams that we like, right? This is what we do. But we also like the game of hockey. I've always said that, right? Yeah. We all like a team, but we also like the game of hockey. If you like the game of hockey and you're not some like crazy USA guy and like, I don't like any other country and all that, it would be really good for the game if Canada is back in the Stanley Cup Finals or one of their 2 remaining teams wins the Stanley Cup. I'm not saying I really want a Toronto-Edmonton final. I'm just saying it would be cool if one of them get there, let alone wins it.
So then going a step further. So yes, it'd be good for the game if a Canadian team won. Okay. That aside, which Stanley Cup final or which series in general in the playoffs from now on would be the most entertaining matchup?
So Chris just wrote in that Florida is a bad matchup for the Devils, and I would agree with him on that, but we got some time to get there, because I guess if the Devils get out of this round, you're either playing Florida or Toronto, which really neither of those teams are going to be easy. But you're not going to get to a conference finals and play a team that's easy, right? The team's in the conference finals. Which would be the best matchup? Well, I think entertaining wise, it has to be Edmonton. So it would be Edmonton versus one of the teams in the East. You know what's interesting? Matthew Tkachuk in Florida hates Edmonton. He used to be in Calgary, so they were rivals. That would be interesting, because it would be like Edmonton versus Matthew Tkachuk for the Cup. Edmonton and the Devils would be great because you have Jack Hughes, right? You have Jack Hughes and some of these younger kids, Nico Hischier. By the way, I just thought of this, and I'm not going into like Devils analyst 101. Where the hell was Jesper Bratt all series, right? This is a guy that when we had the Devils podcast guy on back in March was saying the number one priority for the Devils in the offseason is to re-sign Jesper Bratt. Jesper Bratt was, I didn't even notice the dude except taking a penalty last night. So, but I think the most entertaining matchup would be Edmonton and maybe the Devils, right? In the Stanley Cup Finals, because you have Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, some of these younger guys. But again, Edmonton's the speed team that could certainly keep up with the Devils. So it'll be interesting. And round 2, if you are a hockey fan, which I'm going to assume if you're listening or watching us right now, you are, if you are a fan of that, round 2 starts tonight. Actually, there is no rest. Right away at 7:00 tonight, Florida at Toronto game 1, Seattle at Dallas afterwards at 9:30. And then tomorrow night is game 1, the Devils down in Carolina and Edmonton at Vegas. I cannot see how, and a good point by Matt brought in, no points for Timo Meier either, right? So the Devils it just even makes it worse. The Devils eliminate the Rangers, right? Timo Meier has no points. Jesper Bratt does nothing. Vitek Vanacek is pulled, and the Rangers lose to the Devils.
Oh, man.
I mean, what is going on in this world? But yeah, I just cannot. And again, I would love to be wrong, because again, I'm not a Devils fan, but I just can't see Carolina beating the Devils. I can't.
Well, I will say on the Jumbotron, like before the game, they like to play a video, like pump up everybody right before they called up starting lines and everything. All like the little highlights were all like against Carolina. It was crazy. Like all these like fancy moves, whatever.
Maybe it was a sign. So if you're the Devils, the recipe I would say is you get a split in Carolina, right? So you try and get one in Carolina and roll from there. But I just don't see that being a very competitive series, but Vegas disagrees with me because they have the Devils as a slight favorite. I think the Devils would be more. So hopefully we talked you off the ledge today for those people out there, Ranger fans. I tried. We'll see what happens with Gerard Gallant. I mean, again, you can't tell me right now that he's the best guy to be leading this team into the next season after what we just saw. You just can't.
I mean, you're gonna. It feels bad. It sucks, but like at least you're not Boston.
Okay.
At least you didn't. Yep. At least you're not, coming off like a Tom Brady like season and like go 17-1.
Yep. And Eric Holla, who Jim Behringer, who comes on the show, one of our Devil analysts, saying, Eric Holla, 4 goals and 2 shorthanded goals. He was great in the series. Yeah. Someone actually wrote in who wanted to come on the show today, a Devil fan, actually wrote in literally right before we went on the air about how Eric Holla was like, okay in the regular season. He was a stud in the series, and he's right. And Jim Behringer would agree on that. So if you're the Devils, congratulations. No sour grapes for me. The Rangers just didn't show up. I don't know what happened. I don't have an answer for that. So anyway, Devils in 5-6 against Carolina. Yep. Similar boat. I think 6. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 5, but I could see them clinching at 6. So if you're a Devil fan, you want to know a trick, right? You do right now. You go on StubHub and you buy game 6, because obviously if it's game 6, there's one team that's up 3-2. Most likely it would be the Devils, I would say.
Mhm.
And if the game doesn't happen, you get your money back. So you have opportunity now before the market goes up and you buy some Game 6 tickets, go see them clinch.
And you can do the same thing for Game 5.
But Game 5's in Carolina.
Oh.
So, yes. And Michael is right, who's writing in Rangers got shut out twice, still an embarrassment. And then not only did they get shut out twice, Michael, the other 2 games that they lost, they scored 1 goal. Amazing.
Is now the time to buy Game 6? Like, do you think as the series goes on, they'll go higher?
Yeah, they will go higher.
Like, so now's the time.
Now, if you wanted to. But here's the other risk in doing that. You buy Game 6. If I'm wrong, Carolina's up 3-2, like it was the Ranger game the other night, I would not have wanted to go to that where they could be eliminated. And then you're stuck with the tickets. So, all right. So that is it for us today. Again, remember to check out the Bamboozle Yes, what's up?
Whoa, bro. Knicks?
There will be time. My son said to me, this is all you need to know.
Okay.
My son Tyler says to me,
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I'll never forget this.
What?
He says, Dad, at least we still have the Knicks. The fact that the Knicks are my backup now in my life, my safe choice, my insurance policy is the Knicks. Even executive producer Pat over there shaking his head at that comment. And he's right. We will talk about the Knicks. And the Knicks need to win tonight.
They need to win tonight.
They need to win tonight, Game 2.
Yes.
And I would expect them to.
You don't want to go into 10 seconds of detail how they were up 20 points?
No, I don't. And you know what happened? I'll tell you real quickly what happened because we are already over 16 minutes longer than we normally go. I tell you, good thing we don't get paid by the minute here. The Knicks on Sunday, I couldn't watch because my son had a game literally at the exact time. So I was following on my phone. And I saw they were up a lot in the first half. And someone had texted me to say that they were playing great. Yeah. So I kind of I didn't tune it out, but like I stopped checking until the end of the game, like my son's game, like 45 minutes later. So we get back in the car and it was raining. I mean, it was like disgusting weekend here in the Northeast, right? So I'm drenched and I look at my phone and I see that they were down like 8 in the end of the third. Like, what happened?
Yeah. I don't know.
They need Julius Randle back. And sometimes Julius Randle, sometimes they play better without Julius Randle, but right now they need Julius Randle back. And they need to win tonight.
I don't know what happened, but same thing like you. I just like, oh, they're up 20. It's like the halftime. All right, I don't have to pay attention anymore. We're good. And then, third quarter. What the hell happened?
All downhill from there. So we thank you all for listening. Look, this was not an easy episode to do, right? We are literally 11 hours after the Ranger season ended. Yeah. And I know some of you were like, well, why would you even show up? I have to show up. This is what we do, right? We got to talk about it. So hopefully we talked you through it. We will talk you through the summer. One thing I also told my son today when he was upset was that the off season is short, right? So we're already at May 2nd right now. A happy 40th birthday today to my brother as well, because it's May 2nd. Thank you, executive producer Pat, chiming in from the corner. But being that it's May 2nd, the schedule for next year usually comes out like mid to late June. Like things will kind of start to go fast. If the Rangers are going to make a coaching change, it's not something that's going to happen in July. It'll happen sometime in the next few weeks. So you'll have an idea on that. You'll kind of get, free agency getting started here at the beginning of July. So we'll have some stuff going on.
And I feel like, this week the emotions are fresh and we're coming right off it. So next week we'll have a little time to settle and actually not that you weren't thinking clearly today, but we'll have a nice week. Because right now we're like, get rid of everybody.
Get them out of here.
Get them out of here.
And sell the building too. Get rid of Madison Square Garden. So that's it for us. We thank our sponsor, the Bamboozle Project. As always, we encourage you to check them out, thebamboozleproject.com. Get your MYPB gear. There's plenty of summer gear up on the site as we start to change seasons, although you wouldn't know it today. I'm the idiot that wore a black T-shirt. I should have worn a black sweatshirt like you. Use promo code MYPB while you're there and check it out. And anything else from you, sir?
No, it was a crazy evening. Never experienced something like that. Game 7 with 2 teams that live right next to each other. It was a great experience.
And you being where you live, you literally live as close to probably the city as you do Newark.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're like that's back in the middle.
Yeah, it was about a half-hour trip. And shout outs to Barton Nursery, because without the guys at Barton and Joey Bartnick, we he got some great seats and it was great. And one last thing, I wasn't expecting this, but look at the jumbotron and Brodeur's on the jumbotron, and I hear people yelling. I turn around, he's on the ledge right behind me, like getting people up. I'm like, oh, Marty! So it was pretty cool.
Thank you for not getting me his autograph. It's not really someone's autograph I would want.
I don't know, but come on. If you see Marty Brodeur,
And thank you, everyone, for all the comments. You guys today to show up with all the comments. I think we had a record number of comments. So we tried to get to them all. You can contact us, DM us on Instagram. We always responding to your comments and whatnot. And have a great rest of your week.